Welcome everybody to this first ever virtual PnP conference. We're super excited to actually organize this one. This is the first time we as a Microsoft 365 PnP team are setting up a virtual conference. So hopefully everything goes well. So I'm pretty thrilled after seeing all of the different sessions already advanced. You will probably have an awesome time, most likely awesome time within upcoming hours. So this time we made it in a way that we have 16 different sessions. So we'll start with this keynote where I'm actually going to introduce, well, first of all, welcome you, and then we're going to introduce slightly on the PnP topics and PnP thinking behind of the scenes. Maybe something which you heard in the past as well, but we want to make sure that everybody is up to date on the different assets and capabilities and components and projects and all of the things what's available for you to take advantage. Now, we'll start with this one, like a 30 minutes summary, and then we'll move into two different tracks. Tracks has been divided. It was really hard to actually make a decisions on which session is on which track. The good thing about that, however, is that every single session has been recorded. So we will release, obviously, all of the sessions as a videos in our YouTube channel. So you don't have to worry about missing a session. You can actually access all of the recordings afterwards, after the actual conference is done. And then we'll end up today in the Ask Me Anything session. So we have the final 30 minutes where you can actually ask questions around the sessions. You can ask questions around the Microsoft 365, Azure, or any of the persons who are presenting or whatever comes to your mind. So we really want to be, we really want to have that session where you can ask any question what you want, and we'll try to answer that, obviously, if we can. Now, like said, this is the first time we are executing this as a team, as a PnP virtual team. The PnP team members are responsible of all of these organizations, and the PnP team members actually consist from people all around the world from different companies. And this is one of the things what we started doing from a day one almost with the PnP initiative. So we wanted to work together with MVPs, together with different people across the world. So we make sure that the guidance, the samples, the reusable assets, and the way we actually share stuff is universal. So it's actually available for everybody across the world. And it's not that somebody somewhere in the office dictates that something needs to be done. No. We actually work together with the community. We work together with customers and partners to make sure that whatever we actually provide as a guidance or as a sample or as a reference solution is actually valid and a real build. And that's been definitely one of the benefits out of this model where we on a day-to-day basis are engaged or having a discussions together with the PnP team members and obviously with the community as well. Now, let's actually move into the slides. So I have quite a few slides to go. I'm going to keep the pace intentionally, but I want to make sure that we cover a few things, the important things related on the PnP project and PnP initiative before we go to the actual specific session. So in this keynote session, we're going to keep things relatively in high level, and then we'll have the more detailed technical sessions coming up after this one. Now, coming back on the, let's say, the birth and idea of this PnP initiative, and especially at the 2020 time, it's been an interesting year. A lot of us have been forced to actually sit at home and work from home, which is the case in my case as well. So I'm working from home. Well, in my case, I've been working from home for quite a long time, but it's actually been a really difficult year for a lot of the people actually moving from the offices where they had their colleagues, where they had their team, where they had people to ask help, and to the model where you actually work from home. And sure, we have this technology, which is awesome. We can actually use the Microsoft Teams, but every now and then you might actually be missing that peer-to-peer guidance. You might be missing that connection with colleagues. You might not be able to find a person to ask the help like we used to have when we started when we worked at the office. So as an example, I started in Microsoft back in 2006, and we had a really strong team, which we've spent countless of hours together in the office, actually sharing the learnings related on SharePoint. SharePoint 2007 was just coming out, and I started as a consultant. And basically, we were working together to figure out how it's been extended and all of that, because we didn't really have a proper idea on that when we when we started. And to be honest, back in 2006, if somebody been around since that, and there was no proper documentation, there was no proper guidance, there was no details around, okay, what we can do and what is the thinking behind the product. So it's now 14 years since that time, and luckily we are in this situation where we actually have the engineering explaining the thinking behind the functionalities. And we also have a much faster release cycles in the internet as well, which is one of the challenges, no doubt. Now, if you think about, especially if you think about the 2020, it's been a really interesting situation, like mentioned. And a lot of us have been forced to actually work from home. We do not have those day-to-day connections, and that might actually impact that, let's say, the feeling and productivity absolutely of many of you. And that's why the virtual communities and virtual connections are so super important. So even though we cannot meet physically, we can reach out to the people and we can find the people, and we can always connect virtually using the social media channels or using our community calls as an example. So this picture is from our community call from 27th of, I'm just checking, 27th of August. So this one was from our SharePoint framework community call, and it was a really nice setup. So we had 156 attendees, if I remember correctly, and we got 51 of them actually enabling the video and showing themselves in the together mode. And so sure, we work remotely in our homes, but using this kind of technology, using these tools, you can actually find the peers and you can feel more, let's say, empowered. You can feel more part of the team because we can actually work together regardless of the physical location where we are within the world. And that's no doubt been also one of the driving forces of the PnP thinking and what do we want to do with the PnP initiative. Now, if you think about the PnP itself, the PnP initiative, the Microsoft 365 PnP initiative, we have a lot of samples available. We started this journey already years ago, and no doubt we came from the SharePoint background. So we started the SharePoint PnP first, and then we have been now extending the same proven model, also the Microsoft Teams, and we provide samples of Microsoft Graph and many of the other things as well. A lot of the samples overlap with Power Platform and so on, because it's all part of Microsoft 365. And as a field person, as a customer or as a partner, you don't really care. Is it a SharePoint? Is it a Power Platform thing? Or is it a Microsoft Teams? As long as you can fulfill the requirement what you have. So therefore, we want to actually provide different samples and guidance across the whole, let's say, palette of the Microsoft 365. And we want to use the similar-minded thinking what we have which we had in the past in a smaller scale across the Microsoft 365, all of the different capabilities over there. Now, right now, if you think about what we have available, like I said, we have quite a lot of samples, so there's more than 500 samples available. We'll go through how do you find the relevant samples for you in a second. We have more than 1,470 contributors in a GitHub organization. So we do have quite a lot of different locations where we actually work and different projects, and I'm going to go through some of them today. But there's quite a lot of contributors throughout the years who's been active on this. Back in a year ago, the PnP model was actually awarded by our senior leadership as the reference model for the community engagement, which is a nice acknowledgement that the model where we work together with the community, with MVPs and the non-MVPs, the normal community members, is the way how we should be engaging with the community across the different organizations. So super cool getting that award. Now, for the past 2 weeks, we've been having 80,000 visitors in our GitHub organizations. That's always kind of dependent also on what time of the year it is. So right now in August, it's a summertime in the Northern Hemisphere. So a lot of the Northern Hemisphere people have been having time off. So the numbers are slightly down, but they're again picking up in the end of August. Now, we also have more than 63,000 tenants using our open source components on each month, generating actually tens of billions of HTTP requests through the cloud. So basically, there's a lot of people using these components, which is a good, because it means that if somebody finds an exception or somebody finds a bug, it can be fast fixed and it can be provided to multiple people rather than everybody having to deal with their own individual components, all individual versions of their, let's say, core functionalities. So having a generalized component which we built together with the community, which we can use, and then on top of that, your specialized partner, let's say customer specific things, that's a great model because then you can benefit out of the joint knowledge of the community, but then you build your own expertise on top of that. So really, really great model as well. Now, in our YouTube channel, we've been having more than 3.1 million watch time minutes within the past year, which is a growing number as well. So really cool to see the growth in the multiple areas as well. Now, if you think about a few, let's say, words around the technology, if you think about the Microsoft 365, and I think within this year, we've been starting to do a better job on explaining what is Microsoft 365 and how do we actually think about the Microsoft 365 as a whole. And obviously, the whole idea of this one is that it's a combination of multiple services which you can access using whatever device you're using and whatever device you have. So in my table, I have here Surface Books, I have iPhones and iPads and all of that. And it doesn't really matter which tool you're using. You can always access the same relevant data. I can continue the same PowerPoint in my iPhone or in my iPad or in my Windows computer, which is brilliant. So it's all about getting access on the relevant information, what you as a persona are doing. And obviously, I'm using the Microsoft Teams and Office clients for that. There's a web browser, or you can use the web browser as well. So all of this is available. Nowadays, as an example, the Office web browser access is so good that you can easily get fooled on that being the, let's say, the desktop client, which is really, really cool. So it's really close. And I've seen a lot of the people actually using or preferring to use the web client rather than the desktop in many of the cases. Now, underneath all of this and the user access and the different devices, we also have the Fluid framework, which is in preview. That's coming up in the first version usage relatively soon. Not going to announce anything on the PnP Virtual Conference, but later on in this autumn, you'll hear definitely more about that one. But it gives you the capabilities of really focusing or collaborating in the individual document level. So really cool stuff as well. And we can actually extend that. So if you come from a developer background, you can do a lot of stuff on that. And then underneath that one, everything accessing the data, we are using the Microsoft Graph. So you can see more and more investments on the Microsoft Graph. You can see more APIs on the Microsoft Graph, and you can see more really cool capabilities getting accessed through the Microsoft Graph from any device, from any desktop object, or from your custom code as well. So really cool stuff from an overall Microsoft 365 perspective. Now, if we think about this slightly more specifically on the Microsoft Teams and SharePoint side, which is where I come from. So I work actually on the OneDrive SharePoint side of the house, but obviously collaborate super closely with Microsoft Teams people. And this is basically the how we're thinking this as well. So we have the Microsoft Teams, which is the primary client. You've probably seen us to promote that heavily, especially during this year. And it's been super, super successful, given the fact that what happened on the spring 2020. And everybody had to move to the cloud as we were working remotely. And then together with Microsoft Teams, we also have the SharePoint. So using the SharePoint, you can create content, you save the files, you can create news, you can create portals and all of that, which then can be actually surfaced in the Microsoft Teams. So the Microsoft Teams might be your primary client, but the SharePoint is the one where we actually store the information, the videos and the files, and maybe even our extensibility, which is pretty cool. So you can extend the Microsoft Teams using the extensibility, which is automatically hosted in SharePoint side. And obviously underneath those UX layers and functionalities, which you can see by within your computers, there's the Azure services behind the scenes, there's the machine learning, there's the artificial intelligence, which is happening automatically behind the scenes, which you can take advantage as well. There's the Microsoft Graph and information protection. So through the Graph, you can access the relevant data, again, based on the persona who's actually running the software. And then there's the information protection. So all of this is being secured through the Azure AD and the security layers. And then we also have the Power Platform, which is the low-code, no-code option for automating functionalities or creating simple application, or not necessarily that simple anymore. So the Power Platform, and especially Power Apps, is evolving really fast as well. So you can actually build really cool capabilities and embed those in Microsoft Teams as well. So really cool stuff as a extensibility or experience perspective. Now, what we want to do with PnP, though, is that we really want to make sure that we provide you the guidance, the components, and tool to get actually started in across all of that stack which we went through. And the PnP is there to help you to let's say, be more productive. So being more productive on understanding how can I do things, or if I'm always repeating, and if we always have to implement the same thing to every single project, what about using a component which actually does that? And then what about contributing? So we also want to empower people to contribute together on building different components and controls and projects through this channel. And the simple address to remember is the AKMS M365 PnP. Now, obviously, in the PnP side, we were kind of always thinking this from a three, let's say, main focus perspective. We have to learn, which is that we're providing guidance and access on the information, so videos and all of that stuff. Reuse is more around reusing capabilities, which we built together with community. So you can take advantage of controls, you can take advantage of the code, the samples, whatever we are providing. And then sharing, which is a really important piece of that as well, because sharing is caring. It's all about the fact that we want to help you to share your knowledge in a way that everybody also knows what you've done. So really giving you the acknowledgement, making sure that you feel empowered and you feel that people appreciate what you're sharing for the community. That's been kind of a classic challenge in the open source and in a GitHub. It's just great people and great stuff available, but people don't necessarily find them. So we want to use the PnP also as a channel that when you want to share something, where you want to actually share a sample, a component, or reusable thing, we want to make sure that we can amplify the message what you are intending to use. So we want to make sure that your contributions are being known more efficiently by the rest of the community. Now, if we quickly quick through on all of those different channels, and if we quickly jump through this, so obviously learn is all about getting access on information, getting access on how can I do X and Y and Z. And we have the YouTube channels, we have the official Microsoft 365 developer YouTube channel, and then we have the Microsoft 365 SharePoint community videos YouTube channel. And that's not necessarily just extensibility, because especially in my case, as an example, I come from a consulting background. As a Microsoft Consulting Services consultant, it wasn't really always development. It was every now and then business consulting. It was understanding IT pros and administrators and end users. So dividing the people just in developers and non-developers, from my perspective, that's not necessarily the right thing to do. So what we want to do with the community channel in YouTube is that we're mix and matching things, and obviously you'll find then which of those videos are relevant for you. And we also want to promote videos which the community is doing. So there's a lot of videos from MVPs who are involved in the PnP initiative. In the open source side of the house, there's the github.com SharePoint, github.com PnP, github.com Office Dev, and github.com Microsoft Grad. So a lot of different options available to find samples, reusable code, open source projects in different organizations. We also have the sample galleries. Right now there's 4 of them, which is actually quite a lot to remember, but we're looking into making a consolidated sample gallery relatively soon, so we're investing already on that one, which is looking pretty okay. So for now, when we're recording this video, if you're interested, as an example, on Microsoft Teams samples in GitHub done by the community or by the Microsoft, you can go AKMS Teams samples, Teams-samples, and you can actually find multiple set of projects. And when you click the details, you'll actually be redirected to the GitHub project. So this way, you don't have to use the GitHub search to find out what's relevant for you. We'll rather give you a categorized set of samples so you can find what's relevant for you. And then if you're wondering on so many URLs, what do I actually need to remember? And there's only one URL to remember. So AKMS M365, where you can actually get access on the documentation, samples, initiatives, community goal details, and all of that. So everything is available from there. So let's actually quickly have a look on that. So those different options which we have available through there. So first of all, AKMS AKMS M365 PnP. And this is the location where we can actually then see community course guidance, sample solution, SDKs, and solution. We actually briefly quickly zoom in. From here, you can find all of the different community calls which are available for Microsoft 365 platform, adaptive cards, Microsoft Graph, Microsoft Teams, which are happening typically on a monthly basis. And then we have special interest groups, which are happening bi-weekly. And then like the general Microsoft 365 dev, and then the SharePoint framework one. One thing you maybe notice that SharePoint framework one isn't just about SharePoint, because SharePoint framework is a valid extensibility model for Microsoft Teams. We'll come back on that one slightly later on the presentation as well. Now, you can also find all of the guidance, the Microsoft Teams development guidance, the graph guidance, SPFX guidance, sharing is caring, a super important initiative as well. How would I actually get started on contributing? Really great effort and super popular to get started on understanding how would I consume these samples, how would I contribute in GitHub. So if you're not familiar with that one, this thinking, please join up for the sharing is caring and this live training sessions where we have people helping you to get started on the contributing. It's a super important thing. And then the video channels, the official one, the official Microsoft 365 developer, the community one, and a lot of the different projects which are available. So super cool site, AKMS M365 PnP or pnp.github.io, where you can actually find all of the details related on what is available. So super valuable. Now, what's super important also to remember is the sample galleries, like I mentioned. So Microsoft Teams sample gallery, as an example, looks like this one. For now, we're looking on modifying this, but you can much more easily find what's relevant for you when you have a ways of slicing down what you're looking for. So as an example, if you're looking for an implementation in TypeScript related on Microsoft Teams, like a field visit mashup over there or Expert Finder app template, you can actually find that. And we actually have mix and match here. We have the Microsoft samples like Microsoft Teams app templates together with community samples, which is really cool. So you can actually then find really what's relevant for you. If it's something what has been built using Power Apps and you're interested on that one, you'll find that. Or if you're looking for a, let's say, bare bones solution, some simple solutions, or if you're looking for a bot samples, you can actually find those samples as well. It's a really nice way of accessing what's relevant, and then when you click the details of the sample, you'll be actually redirected to the GitHub repo where that sample is. So this way, it's much more efficient or easier to find the samples which are relevant for you. And we have the similar kind of setup for the Microsoft Teams samples, SharePoint Framework samples. There's so many SharePoint Framework samples available. You should never start from scratch, almost. Or SharePoint Framework extension samples also are available. Now, again, from the SharePoint Framework side, SharePoint Framework web part samples are really good also for Microsoft Teams, because all of these can be exposed using Microsoft Teams as well. So you can surface the Microsoft the samples in Microsoft Teams if they're using SharePoint Framework newer version than 1.8, and a lot of them actually are, which is really cool. So then you can actually surface the same capability inside of the SharePoint Online if you want, or directly only in the Microsoft Teams. So it works natively in the Microsoft Teams, and then you can modify that and do adjustments based on your business requirements. So really cool stuff. Now, let's actually get back on the slides and quickly think about the reuse and other capabilities. So one of the things which been really cool as a journey, what we've done together with community, is the Lookbook site and the Lookbook templates. And this is really cool. It's fully open source and it's available for you to get access. So let me actually jump in directly on that demo. So what we actually have available is a separate different kind of templates which you can provision to any tenant in the world. So as an example, you can go and have a look on new employee onboarding hub template. Oh, that's really cool looking stuff. It's a hub site, multiple site collection. You can click add to your tenant and basically get the site provision to that particular tenant. Now, for now, some of these are requiring really high permissions, and this is basically because we are creating tenant level structures and modifications in certain cases. Now, and that requires a tenant permission approval, which isn't quite actually optimal because it's quite rare that the tenant administrator is the one who would like to provision a site. So we're looking into, especially in a simple template site perspective, like as an example, the leadership connection or the landing and so on, which are branded sites, but they are one single site collection. This will be lighting up as a normal end user templates later this autumn. So really cool stuff as well. All of these templates and the implementation itself is also open source. So in the way, everything what we do, we want to actually share that as an open source solution for the community, which is super, super important. Now, one of the other things which I wanted to actually call out quickly in here is also the Yo team. So Microsoft has an extensibility tooling from Microsoft Teams, so we can actually use the Visual Studio Code extension, but that does not replace Yo Teams. The Yo Teams actually is a really cool capability on being able to create bots using TypeScript, or bots or messaging extensions or webhooks or connections or application, a personal application. And we're working together with Microsoft Teams engineering to make sure that both of these are, let's say, in the same messaging, and the Yo teams are getting more integrated in the Visual Studio Code extension. So you can actually also provision TypeScript-based implementations using the native tooling. So as an example, in this case, I'm going to use a relatively quick sample. And so here I have a Microsoft Teams implementation, and we're using the classic story. You might have seen this. There's a lead application. So we have a lead solution which actually has been built using SharePoint framework. And from here, we can easily create, as an example, Microsoft To-Do tasks, which is a pretty cool capability. So we're using the Microsoft Graph, the new To-Do example. I can create a reminder for myself to the To-Do. And if I go to the To-Do, let's see if I can actually get easily to the To-Do. Now, let's save actually time. You can actually see the task in the to-do list. Now, what we also done here with this sample, and it is open source sample, is that we have an application extension, a messaging extension, I'm sorry, which we can fire in the discussion. And then behind the scenes, we have a bot which is actually using adaptive cards of adding that card back to the channel. So we can have a discussion related on the business data in the Microsoft Teams because we have this integration. So for example, in this case, let's have a discussion related on, let's say, Game Controller 3300. I'll select that one. And we're using the bot which was created using the Yo Teams. And we're adding that to the channel, and we can have a discussion around that particular lead. So really cool stuff, no doubt. And all of this is obviously open source. We also have an Azure function behind of the scenes because Azure is quite typically, it's in behind of the functionalities and behind of the Microsoft 365 implementations. Now, we also have non-development capabilities, which we do in the PnP. So it's not just about extensibility. So Microsoft 365 Community Docs is a good initiative across the Microsoft 365 to collect guidance and samples which you can contribute. So super important thing. And there's so many other projects, so many other things which we're not going to mention today because I'm on a tight schedule, because there's other sessions starting after this keynote as well. But please have a look on the M365 AKMS M365 PnP address where you can find more relevant information, where you can contribute, or what are the tools and samples which are available. Now, if you think about the share capability, this is a really big piece of the community and really big piece of what we execute together with you, community members. So already today, when I'm recording this, we have more than 350 community members who contributed in 2020. So I'm not going to obviously mention all of these people one by one because there just isn't enough time. What's really, really cool is that we have also companies who basically given permission for their employees to contribute. So these are the companies which we have a permission to show. But the key point here is really to say thank you for your efforts and helping us to be successful on this journey together. Because again, when we build things together, we are so much powerful. We can build on the common knowledge of other people, and we can actually succeed together. And rather than competing, let's actually keep on sharing these opportunities and keep on sharing the learnings between other people in the community as well. Now, if you're interested on participating, if you're interested on getting involved, we have a relatively large PnP team, and feel free to reach out to any of these people. They know exactly how to reach out to other ones if any help is needed. They know how to get involved. They are running and leading those individual projects. Some of them are Microsoft employees, some of them are non-Microsoft employees, some of them are MVPs, and some of them are not MVPs. It really doesn't matter. We wanted to build this team, which is across the world with different backgrounds and across the different companies. And we are looking into extending this team in the future as well. So do get involved and help others to succeed as well in the community. And how did you get involved? AKMS, M365 PnP, get involved, get started on individual projects, ping people in this issue list, ping people in the social media, ask them on the opportunities on getting started. But if you don't want to get involved, but you want to just consume the components, that's completely fine as well. That is absolutely a valid option which you can take advantage. Now, that's all what I had a time for you to talk about these things today. There's so many things what's happening. I would love to actually talk about these things even more. But the key point here is that thank you, everybody, for joining today on this PnP Virtual Conference. Thank you for being part of the community. Thank you for giving us the feedback on what you need. Super, super important piece as well. So if something is missing, let us know. We do exist, and the initiative exists for your benefit. So we need to help. You need to help us to help you, so to say, a classic Hollywood film saying. But that way, we can help you and we can be successful together. But let's stay in touch and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.